Welcome to Capitol View on WSIU. I'm Brian Sapp. The Illinois State Fair is in full swing, meaning concerts, earlier sunsets, and politicians visiting the fair. We'll talk about the gubernatorial race, looking to see how the campaigns are taking shape with just 5 weeks before early voting begins. The end of summer also means football is back. Well, we're not talking about football on the field yet. We're talking about Bears management and what they said during a news conference last week during training camp. Joining us today are Hannah Meisel. She's the legal affairs reporter for Capitol News Illinois, and Kent Redfield. He's political scientist, professor emeritus at the University of Illinois Springfield. Hannah and Kent, it's good to see you. Welcome to the program.
Good to be here.
Thanks for having us.
So State Fair is going on today. As we're recording on Wednesday, it's Democrats Day. I've actually got a recording going downstairs in the radio room on the Democrats Day going on there just to see what's going on. And tomorrow is Republicans. Hannah, can we start? I'm just going to give you a broad question. Where are we at in the campaign cycle now?
Well, I mean, most regular folks probably have not been paying attention to the fact that we are in an election year. Maybe they are aware that, their members of Congress are up for re-election. There's plenty in the news about whether Democrats nationally will regain control of the U.S. House. But, other than that, I wouldn't fault, any regular person for not, knowing the ins and outs of what's happening here, much less that there is, statewide races here in Illinois. That's because they're really just not very competitive. In the governor's race, of course, we have a rematch between Governor J.B. Pritzker and one-time state legislator and, basically Republican gadfly, Darren Bailey. And I'd say that garnered a lot more attention 4 years ago when, Bailey was kind of riding a wave of the things that brought him to prominence in the first place. Outrage over, COVID restrictions, things that were much more, salient then, like parents' rights, all of those kind of things. And those things have really calmed down in the years since. We have President Trump back in the White House, and Republicans nationally are feeling those headwinds. Where are we at in the governor's race? Like in the campaign cycle in general, like you said, we are 5 weeks to early voting, but Labor Day is generally the kickoff. But the state fair for those of us who have been in and around Springfield for many, many years, that's also a big milestone. And like you mentioned, as we are sitting here recording this on Wednesday morning, Democrats have their gigantic county chairs breakfast in Springfield. It's a production that seems to have grown larger and larger every year, certainly since I've been covering it. And Democrats got Senator Elizabeth Warren to be their keynote speaker today, and I think that's an interesting choice that says a lot about where the party maybe sees itself. She's definitely one of those kind of celebrity progressives in the party. And we've certainly seen, very, very progressive candidates do, I guess, surprisingly well over the last year and a half nationally. And, it'll be really interesting to see what she says, what kind of advice she might give Illinois Democrats. And, then Republican Day will be on Thursday, and it'll be interesting to see what, if they have any new messaging, if they try, what they kind of, see as their, their message going forward in what's expected to be a very, very difficult year for Republicans nationally, and of course, particularly here in Illinois, a very, very solidly blue state.
Definitely, like you said, what is that message going to be for the Republicans? Kent, how are you seeing things shape up?
This is the state fair traditionally has been kind of particularly when the center of the political universe uh, was a little more balanced in terms of downstate versus Chicago and the metropolitan area. And so the state fair candidates come, and then Labor Day is kind of the traditional, kickoff sort of thing of into the home stretch. And so, uh, this doesn't have a lot of sense of, warring parties coming to do battle in Springfield because of how dominant the Democrats are. And you have incumbents running for all of the statewide offices except for one, and the Democrats are in very good shape in terms of both their traditional funding base and then J.B. Pritzker as a billion-dollar patron, of which the Republicans used to have three, Bruce Rauner, Ken Griffin, and Richard Uihlein, and they are all pretty much disengaged from Illinois politics at this point. Just, a an FYI footnote, Pritzker put $65 million into his campaign fund. If you count up all of the checks that he's written to various entities in Illinois, and we're not talking about pass through where he gives money to JB for governor and JB governor gives some, to another political committee. He's very close to $1 billion since he really got involved in Illinois politics in the 2016 election. And so that's just, having incumbency and money, and then demographics. Again, downstate is the base now of the Republican Party, but it's losing population. The growth area is the suburbs, and that used to be the center of Republican politics statewide. And the Republicans really have lost the suburbs. McHenry County is the only county of the traditional collars, those counties around Cook County, that still has a Republican controlled county board. And so, the headwinds are pretty significant. And we'll get to the legislature and Congress. On top of all of that, those tremendously partisan gerrymandered maps. I mean, really the only saving grace, I guess, for the Republicans at this point is you really can't gerrymander a statewide contest, but, and the Democrats would certainly try to do it if they could. But so it's not a good outlook. And now, that you never say never in politics. And the Democrats have got a lot of landmines in terms of funding state government and solving problems. And, who knows what's going to happen, nationally over the next 2 years and 4 years. And so, but right now, if you had to pick a team to root for, you'd certainly be, rooting for the Democrats. If you're on the the prediction markets and stuff, you have to you got to put a lot of money down to to get any back in terms of backing Democrats these days.
There.
And Ken, you brought up the dominance of money primarily from Governor Pritzker. And you had also brought up, before we were recording, the fact that one of the things that the governor self-funded heavily was back in 2020 his campaign for a graduated income tax in Illinois, which is something that he had run on when he first ran for governor. Back in 2017 when he announced it was pretty much his signature campaign promise. And despite putting in tons and tons of money into that, he actually lost, voters at the ballot box. It did not get the 60% approval it needed to have a constitutional amendment. And I think about, you know, the headwinds that, even though Trump was in the White House at that point in 2020, and Democrats were, nationally, they're certainly, with electing Joe Biden and, getting both the House and Senate for a brief period of time. In Illinois, we had headwinds on Democrats, and that came from, having a very, one of the things that, Republicans had finally hit on with some success in the previous years was making former Illinois House Speaker Mike Madigan, infamous. And to the extent that Illinoisans knew anything about Springfield after that period of time, they might have known Mike Madigan's name. Maybe they didn't exactly understand who he was or what he did. But it was, Republicans and opponents of the graduated income tax used him not only to take down the graduated income tax campaign, but also we remember, they took out Illinois Supreme Court Justice Tom Kilbride with, this association with Madigan. And even though right now, the current House Speaker, Chris Welch, is kind of embroiled in controversy himself for kind of similar themes, not exactly the same. I don't want to, obviously Mike Madigan was at that point named public official A, but not yet charged with bribery in this whole scandal involving Commonwealth Edison and other entities, which we don't have to rehash now. I spent plenty of months in the courtrooms for those various cases. But, when it comes to sexual harassment scandal and how, both of these House speakers handled that, Chris Welch is facing, similar pressures. But, that's not something that is at all, breaking through to regular Illinoisans. I just think it'll be really interesting to see how Democrats try to, on this state fair day when it's all about unity, try to smooth things over. And, nothing quite smooths things over with like a ton of money. Yeah. But it doesn't always work, which is my point when I harken back to 2020.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, you have to break through. You've got to get visible before you can become viable if you are a candidate. And the Republicans have a huge visibility problem, but the landmines are out there. And, one of the things why that referendum lost is that to change to graduate income tax is one of the main attack points was, do you trust these people? You're going to give them the ability to raise your income tax without limit, no more flat tax kind of constraints. And do you really want to trust these people with your money? And so, when you've got a competitive situation, it really helps if people believe that the people that are the incumbents are competent, that they are honest, that they are making things work. And so things that don't look huge at this point, a scandal in a funeral home and whether we really have good oversight, or a state agency, in this case, Department of Children and Family Services, not showing up for court and reminding people of the long history of DCFS being a dysfunctional agency, those sorts of things, with the right candidates, with the right, so we never say never in politics. And, the Democrats will have another 4 years to fix things or paper things over or make them worse. We shall see.
I think, they've got the tailwinds pushing them on this, and the Republicans are facing the headwinds, and we'll see. I don't know many of these messages are connecting, probably because of other issues that are hitting people like affordability. One last election thing I wanted to talk about. Kent, when we were kind of setting up today, you talked about municipal elections. The Chicago mayor's election is in the spring. Alexi Giannoulias, among others, he's running a campaign to become the Secretary of State again, but he also threw his hat in the ring for the Chicago mayor. I've seen lots of concerns about, well, why is he running for the Secretary of State office?
Well, and similar concerns about where's the governor's attention?
Yeah.
Is he really interested in the state of Illinois, or has he got this, is the prize 2028 and running for president? You are the comptroller, Mendoza said, I'm not running. I'm going to run for mayor of Chicago. And so there's a certain sense in which, being an incumbent in a kind of, and not being in the same election cycle, it's a good place to hang out for 2 years until the next election. And so we had one Secretary of State who made drunk driving a really, really important issue to kind of highlight his office. Jim Edgar. We had George Ryan, when he was Secretary of State, talking about mandatory automobile insurance and lobbyist registration reform. And so, having an office to draw attention to sometimes is preferable to being out in the wilderness for 4 years, which is where Darren Bailey is at this point, not having much to point to. So, it is progressive ambitions seem to be something that very, very few people get to elective office and say, I've found my place in life. Although Jesse White was elected 6 times as the Secretary of State. So you certainly can, make an office your home, but generally you're always a little itchy for is there somewhere else I could make, more of a difference? And so I don't think this is going to go away anytime soon. It's just interesting that the way that it's lining up in this election.
Yeah, there's and Mr. Giannoulias isn't the only person. There's plenty of people that are running for 2 offices at the same time. So I guess we'll have to see that. Want to move on from elections. I think our last topic, the Bears last week, spring training started. I haven't been able to watch, been busy, but I understand the Bears won their first game. Preseason doesn't mean much, but off the field, Kevin Warren and Mr. McCaskey had a press conference, and Hammond came up. Hannah, can you kind of fill us in on a little bit of what happened and a little bit of the response?
Yeah, this is every time, this issue blows back up, there's obviously a lot of attention. But the bottom line here, as a lot of times previous, when they've issued statements, is what they're saying is really not all that different from what they said the last time. And, here they are saying that their focus is still on building a stadium in Northwest Indiana, and their engagement with Illinois is minimal. But, nothing's a done deal. And, the fact remains that the Bears really, they didn't work in good faith in Springfield, and that really upset a lot of people who, wanted to help them. The issue here, just to remind viewers, is not to take public money and build a stadium, kind of like what Indiana, they're giving away a lot more, but it's, to create a plan that the Bears can use the site in Arlington Heights, the site of the former Arlington Park racecourse that the Bears bought back in 2023, raised the entire racecourse with the intention of building, but, kind of put the cart before the horse, as it were, although that's harness racing and that's a really dumb horse racing joke.
That's okay. I
But
like it.
uh, you know, uh, but then kind of switched focus a number of times and said, oh, we want to build by the lakefront. We want to remain in, basically the area where they currently, Soldier Field currently is, but that land is owned by the Chicago Park District. It's leased, and you know, we're still paying off that stadium. But basically, what the Bears need is, guarantees from the state of Illinois that there will be help with public infrastructure that would be needed to build the stadium. But I want to read what Kevin Warren, Chicago Bears president, said. I don't know why it hit a dead end in Springfield. We've been very clear for the last couple of years. The things we've always needed is property tax certainty. We need infrastructure certainty. That's what we've needed, so that's not changed. I think a lot of people might disagree that they've been clear what they've needed. And, the governor's office, who, a couple of years ago at this point, retained a person to kind of help legally on this deal, had said, the onus is on team to put together legislative language that can pass both chambers of the legislature, but, the team still hasn't done so. And, there's just a lot of bad feelings, but there's time. I think there's no deadline here. All the time pressure is kind of artificial because there's still, I think, like 9 more years on that lease at Soldier Field. Yes, it does take a lot of time to build a stadium. Hopefully, though, not that long.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and Hannah, I think you kind of hit on it, and it's hard to say because we can't tell what's in their minds. But Kent, when I kind of try to watch this down here, I mean, I'm a Bears fan, but like I'm down here in Southern Illinois, and it looks like they're courting 2 suitors, and they want to be careful not to upset either. Is that a accurate?
Yeah,
read?
I mean, if you keep your options, open. Number one, number two, it's good to play one person against the other. You don't want to negotiate with yourself. You want to see, make me an offer, sort of thing. But Hannah is right. This is not going to happen overnight. You have a lease. You got to buy your way out of a lease. The Arlington is a much more kind of ready site to deal with than the places they're talking about in Indiana, which are going to require some significant environmental, rehabilitation in terms of the area, an industrial area that's got a lot of problems in terms of ground pollution, water pollution, those sorts of things. And part of this falls on, the owners. These are, sports franchises are incredibly valuable. We're that Los Angeles Lakers may be selling for like $12 billion or 16 or whatever the figure it happened to be. And so, sometimes, just because people inherit a franchise and have got a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean they're smart businessmen. And so, we still have a horse racing entity down in East St. Louis that took advantage of the idea of putting sports betting in there and kind of embracing the change in the gambling culture. That didn't happen in Arlington. And, the owner was more interested in getting involved with another casino. I'm forgetting where it was, but, and the harness racing people spent a lot of time in the tracks that used to exist sabotaging each other. And now we've got no horse racing left in harness or, or otherwise. And so it's that, part of this is whether the owners really know what they're doing, and whether there's a difference between needy and greedy. And so what they need and what they'd like, it may not be matching up at this point.
Definitely, and we'll have to wrap it up here. We have about 30 seconds, but I think the thing that I've noticed is nobody is shutting the door on this. There's lots of time left, and I think we're just going to have to wait and see, let the Bears figure out what their message is and what they want. That's it for this week's edition of Capitol View. Hannah and Kent, thank you for joining us. Good to see you.
Certainly.
On behalf of Hannah and Kent, I'm Brian Sapp. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.